Every day, a university produces numerous procedural communications that guide students and staff through administrative processes: how to register for an exam, how to apply for a scholarship, how to access a service. These messages have a characteristic that sets them apart from all the others. If they are not understood, the consequences are immediate and tangible: a missed deadline, a rejected application, a right that is not exercised. The stakes here are high. Why are procedural instructions so difficult to follow? Research on understanding instructions shows at least three recurring sources of difficulty. The first is syntactic complexity: long sentences, passive constructions, multiple subordinate clauses, texts written like laws rather than messages addressed to people. The second is semantic ambiguity: specialized terminology that change meaning depending on the context or that the user simply doesn't know. Conditional enrollment, locked study plan, part-time study path. The third is the lack of visual structure. A text that describes 5 steps in a single paragraph makes it almost impossible to understand where one step ends and the next begins. Italian universities are often vulnerable to all three. So, how do you construct a high-quality procedural message? In 2004, within the field of technical communication studies, a 4-criteria operational framework was proposed, known as the 4C model, which is now considered a benchmark for designing effective procedural communications. The first criterion is clarity of language. Each step must be expressed unambiguously, with clear action verbs and an explicit subject. The second is conciseness, the absence of redundant information. Anything that the user does not need to complete the procedure should be removed or relocated. The third is terminological and structural consistency. The same term must always be used in the same way. The fourth is completeness, meaning no omission of necessary information. Those following the procedure should not have to look elsewhere for missing information. Let's see how the 4 C's are concretely applied in an Italian university context. Let's take a real example: the notice announcing the opening of applications for a scholarship. Often, these texts present all three of the problems we have discussed. They are written in a passive voice, use unexplained specialized terminology, and present the steps in unstructured blocks of text. Applying the 4 C's. Clarity: the application must be submitted, becomes submit your application by the 30th of April. Conciseness: this means removing legal references from the introductory section. Anyone who needs the legal details can find them in the attached regulations. Consistency: choose a term, for example, student portal, and always use that. So never use IT system or personal area. Completeness: always include a direct link to the page, the necessary documents, and a contact for submitting the application or requesting clarification. Avoiding generic phrases like, "For more information, visit the website." Generative artificial intelligence is particularly useful for reviewing procedural texts, but it is also the area where the risk of error is highest. This phenomenon is known in scientific literature as hallucination. A recent systematic review on the phenomenon shows that language models can generate information that sounds plausible but is actually incorrect, presenting it with the same confidence as they do correct information. In university procedural communication, this risk becomes critical. An artificial intelligence that rewrites a notice could introduce an incorrect deadline, an outdated regulatory reference, or describe a procedure in a way that sounds plausible but does not comply with what is set out by the university. The most recent assessments confirm that despite improvements, the problem has by no means been eliminated. For procedural texts, the consequence is simple. Every piece of information in the output generated by artificial intelligence must be checked. So, how can artificial intelligence be used safely with procedural texts? The starting point is the principle of contextual grounding, which we have already encountered. Artificial intelligence only produces useful results if you provide it with information specific to your institution. For procedural texts, this means providing artificial intelligence with the original text, the relevant regulatory documents, the updated deadlines, and the target audience. You must not let it generate text from scratch. The recommended workflow takes place in 3 steps. First, ask artificial intelligence system to apply the 4C criteria to the original text, explicitly stating which specialized terminology should be kept and which should be simplified. Second, check every factual detail in the output. Dates, links, regulatory references, names of procedures by comparing them with official sources. Third, have the final text reviewed by someone with institutional expertise on the content, not just on the form. Artificial intelligence can improve how we communicate, but what is communicate remains a human responsibility. Let's try to sum things up. Procedural communication is the type of university communication with the most immediate consequences. Those who do not understand information do not act and lose rights, opportunities, and time. The 4C model, clarity, conciseness, consistency, completeness, offers an operational framework for constructing quality procedural messages. Artificial intelligence can effectively support this process, but it introduces a specific risk: hallucinations. In procedural texts, this risk is unacceptable without systematic checking of factual data. The rule is simple. Artificial intelligence can improve the form, but the substance, dates, procedures, and regulatory references must be checked and validated by those with institutional responsibility.